Well, welcome. My name is Chris Salem. I'm here with Peter Collins. And if you're not familiar, Peter Collins is a 3-time Hall of Fame for corporate sales. He's been involved in the sales game for over 60 years. We are about to get some great insight today. He has published over 72 business books in this particular area. He has sold 2.5 million copies. And today we're not only going to be talking about the law of attraction, we're going to go into a deeper dive about the 6 areas of the law of attraction, some things that you have probably never heard before. And this is going to be open to just about anyone, whether if it's in your personal life, in your business, but also for you sales professionals as well, why this is going to be so important. So, Peter, if you could introduce yourself and welcome today.
Thank you very much, Chris. Look, I have been in sales, as Chris said, around the 60-year mark. And in that time, I keep on rewriting records. I can't seem to help myself. I do this internationally, nationally, and so forth. And I talk about a number of records on other videos that I've cut recently. And some of these, I remember one record, I actually was the only guy in the world. This is a multinational record, mind you, in the steam cleaning business. And I actually was the only guy to ever write 4 steam cleaners in a day. Now, they're expensive pieces of equipment.
Yeah.
To do 4 steam cleaners in a day could be a 12, 15, 18-hour exercise. And that's including traveling between calls. Now, if you can imagine that over a 2-year period, I actually wrote the same record or rewrote the same record 50 times. And everybody applauded me for doing it. Nobody else in the world had actually ever gone beyond 3 steam cleaners in a day. And then we got to 55, we got to 60. When we got to 60, my managing director walked up to me, disgusted with me. And he said, "You call yourself a salesman, and yet now for the last 2.5 years, best you can do is write the same record over and over again. You've never been able to better it. Well, the salespeople that I know at the top of their game are better than that. They keep on breaking their records." You know what happened? Within 2 weeks, I was the only guy in the world to actually sell 5 steam cleaners in a day. All I needed was that little bit of a prompter. And most of us in sales or most of us in business never get the opportunity to have people force us into a corner and make us go beyond our limit. Isn't that so true, Chris?
Absolutely.
You know, the interesting thing through all of this, what I want to share with you today is how you can not only get to your limit, but go way past it in a way that you didn't think possible. And it's a lot easier to do. Now, most people with the law of attraction seem to think it's some sort of oozy-doozy type of thing. They've got black hats and all sorts of things are happening. Couldn't be farther from the truth. In another one of my videos, I tell people the law of attraction starts from the Bible. That's how far back it goes, and that's how credible the law of attraction is. Now, the reason I've paused this video is I don't want to confuse you with the way that I've presented the content. And for that reason, I'll be breaking the content up into Part A and Part B. Now, in Part A, I want to introduce you to my 5 simple steps to the law of attraction. This is foundational information that will be crucial for you to understand Part B, which then returns to a deeper dive about the 6 areas of the law of attraction. Now, in order to make it simple, I'll use different color banners in both of those 2 segments, and then that way you'll understand when Part A ends and Part B begins. And what I teach people, and I want to do this today because I want to keep this short, is I teach people the law of attraction in 5 simple steps. The first is you need to choose what you want in life, because if you don't do that, you're sort of floundering. You're not moving anywhere until you get that focus going. Nothing will ever happen, will it, Chris?
Yes, no direction. Absolutely.
Yeah. The other thing is you need to eliminate all of the shackles that you've got in the way. A lot of people put up roadblocks and they do it on their own. Other people have family members that are helpful and they put up roadblocks for them.
Boundaries, right? No boundaries.
That's right. Then other people at work get a little jealous that you're doing something special and they'll give you more of these roadblocks. Now, I break them down this way. The negative mindset that other people have actually destroys your focus. If it doesn't destroy it, it's going to put a roadblock before it. And these are well-meaning people, but they've got a toxic mind. And they'll tell you things like, I wouldn't do that. And if you want my opinion, well, hang on a minute. I didn't ask you for your opinion. You're volunteering it, but you're forcing it on me. That's not a good thing. And I want you to take charge of that in your life. And here's another thing. And this one I absolutely hate with a passion, but it happens all the time. Now, here's what I would do if I were you. I didn't ask you to give you an opinion, so why do you want to force that onto me? This happens more often than not. Can you relate to some of those?
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
It's one of the issues that most people don't want to talk about because they feel embarrassed once you bring it up. And a lot of the mentoring that I've done, when I ask those questions, believe you me, not only are they embarrassed, but they want to give you all the excuses under the sun of what they shouldn't have done. The third is you should never doubt anything, but you should also make sure you don't question anything, because once you visualize something, you're then in a position to work on attracting it. But the minute you start to doubt or start to question is the minute, again, you put up a roadblock, which is now going to be a lot harder to overcome than the other roadblocks. And the other thing is, the fourth point, as far as I'm concerned, is you need to take action. So many people are passive. They're not aggressive. Only aggressive people actually succeed, but they don't realize that you need to be aggressive in order to achieve something in your life. How many times have you had something that's gone in front of you? It's been impossible to overcome, but you've persevered and persevered and persevered.
Absolutely. Embrace the challenge.
And eventually, through that challenge, Chris, you actually achieve what other people thought was impossible. And the fifth point I bring up, you need to recognize and you need to appreciate the power of the law of attraction once a goal is achieved. So every time you achieve a goal, there's been some level of the law of attraction within that goal. And most people don't appreciate that. If you spend a little bit of time going over that goal and then start seeing some of the things that materialized that you didn't expect to materialize, that is the law of attraction. The law of attraction is not some airy-fairy thing that happens. It's something that your mind sets up. And the greater your belief system, the more likely you are to work effectively in the law of attraction.
I love what you just said, Peter, because, when you said appreciation, the first thing that came to my mind was being grateful, that we're grateful for something that we gave without expectation up to that point. And when we receive without resistance, we're being grateful because that's opening up us for the next opportunity. It doesn't always mean that everything goes your way, but we're always willing to find what's grateful in every situation, because each time we do that, we change how we be, to become, to do, and have better results long term.
But isn't gratitude one of the most important things in life?
Yeah.
Do you know anybody that is actually leading people that isn't grateful for those people and keeps telling them how grateful they are for what they're achieving on behalf of the team, the group, the company, and themselves as an individual. These are important issues, and so many people miss those issues only because they think they shouldn't delve into those areas. Guess what? Gratitude is something that should be part of your life. And the more grateful you are and the more you tell other people about how grateful you are for what they've done for you, more doors will open. And that is one of the most important aspects of the law of attraction. Another thing I want to bring up at the moment, which is important, is the word confirmation. Now, a lot of people don't understand the value of confirmation. So if you work with what you already believe and then you confirm it daily, you're actually getting your subconscious mind to start accepting it. Now, here is the power of acceptance. If you work, and it doesn't matter whether you work on a 21-day affirmation process or a 28-day affirmation process, the minute you start to affirm things over 21 or 28 days, I believe that 28 days is more powerful, you then start to embed that into your subconscious. But then, over a 90-day period, if you keep reconfirming, reworking the same concept, it then becomes a lifestyle. And once it becomes a lifestyle, it's almost impossible to break. Now, most people can't set goals because they don't understand the 28 and 90-day process. Once you get to understand that, a lot of doors start to open, and then all of a sudden the floodgates provide you with what you want to do. I want to talk about visualization when it comes to the confirmation process.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I love the confirmation because it centers you on what you're aiming to do, but you're trusting that process in the moment, each day, each week, each month, in that time frame that you talked about.
You know, Chris, the most important thing I can bring up here, I didn't understand the power of goal setting at the age of 18. But I'd set a goal some 6 months earlier for my dream car. Now, the year is 1964. I end up buying a 1960 Jaguar. I'm an 18-year-old kid. I'm not supposed to know anything about this. But, you know, the interesting thing is once I set that goal and I kept on working on it, kept on visualizing it on a daily basis, you've got no idea how many Jaguars I saw on the road.
Yeah, you begin to see a lot more of them.
They're everywhere. And the interesting thing is the Jag that I bought was a James Bond Jag, a Mark II 2.8. And my father, when I drove that into the driveway, came flying out of the house saying, "Get that thing out of my driveway. All the neighbors are going to start thinking I'm making too much money. I don't know where you borrowed it from. Get it out of here." You know what I said to him? "Dad, I didn't borrow it. It's my car. It's going to stay in the driveway." He wasn't too impressed, but he got used to it over a period of time, especially after the second week when he drove it.
Yeah. You got a taste of it, yes.
Right. So all of a sudden, look what my son's got. And every so often he'd borrow it to take my mum out to dinner and stuff like that. So these are the things most people don't realize. Now, I'm also a guy that I grew up with guitars in my hand. I used to be a pretty good guitar player, but my arthritis stopped that. I still have one of Australia's largest private guitar collections, but that's a different story. And in those days, again, I'm an 18-year-old, and I started dreaming about a guitar which I knew I couldn't buy in Australia. I had to import it. It came from Sweden, and it was called a Framus, Framus.
Oh, wow.
You know, within a year, I owned the first two Framus guitars in Australia. Now, here's again an 18-year-old kid that sets a goal, and then all of a sudden, through the power of the law of attraction, it's there. One of the guitars was a black dreadnought, and the other one was a white matte, almost white blonde classical guitar. You know, I focused on those, and you know, the funny thing is they materialized. And this is the power of confirmation, because when you confirm something, you bring in facts, and that means you bring in the real. Anything based on emotion is real. However, most times when you start confirming things, you base them on the logic. Now, anybody in sales knows you can't make a sale mostly based on logic. It doesn't work. It only works based on emotion. You get their juices going. They get involved. They get emotional about it. They personalize it. And all of a sudden, you've got yourself a sale. It's that simple.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying there, because, you know, that emotional side is what we a lot of times we understand, you know, on some level, but we don't tap into and really understand the power of it. People call it emotional intelligence, and you got intellectual intelligence, but, you know, from the sales end, when we can really blend the two, you know, that intellectual intelligence with that emotional intelligence, like you said, Peter, and using that power of confirmation, I mean, it's a game changer, what you're talking about, you know, in terms of the things that you could personally manifest or things that you could do in your business from a sales capacity.
You know, the interesting thing is you can get onto the internet right now and you can work with intelligence.
Yeah.
And you end up with non-emotional intelligence. Nobody talks about emotional intelligence. They talk about artificial intelligence and a whole host of other forms of intelligence. And guess what? They miss the mark, because it's the emotional intelligence is the one that makes things work. Now, reflection is another thing that comes out of emotional intelligence. Now, with reflection, that makes your law of attraction work even more effectively, because now, once you start to reflect on things, you can actually harness that into your subconscious mind. Again, let me talk about how many times you need to do that. Scientists tell us that you need to actually harness things or think on things 16 times in a row. The minute you bring up that 16 times, it then becomes part of your life. It doesn't leave your subconscious brain. You just have to keep calling it and recalling it. And when you do that, you can do one more thing, which is so important, and that is you can then start to personalize. Once you start to personalize whatever you recall, you then start to relive every one of those recollections. People don't understand the power of reliving things. And what it does is it brings in energy. And it's the energy, that energy directed at a certain thing or a certain point, that really brings in the law of attraction at a level that most people don't believe possible.
So it's like continuing that process, right, Peter? Like the reflection that you talked about, it's like almost like you're opening up a door for this abundant energy that's coming in to kind of start doing its magic again. In this case, it's not magic, but it's doing its thing to kind of recreate now another objective that you're aiming for, or something that you're striving to obtain.
Well, let me add one more thing to that, Chris, because this is so important to understand. The minute you open that door, your focus is on just one thing. You can't focus on multiples. The minute you start focusing on multiples, the whole thing starts to disintegrate in front of you. But as you keep on focusing on that one thing, it's the thing that creates the energy, because the more you focus, the more energy leaves you and then starts bringing in the energy from what you're focusing on.
Yeah.
That's the law of attraction. Now, the more energy that you have, either moving forwards or backwards, it doesn't really matter which direction, the more you attract. And the more you attract, the more powerful the law of attraction is. And people keep telling me it's complicated, this law of, no, it's not. The law of attraction couldn't be simpler. The only thing that's complicated are the roadblocks you put up in front of you that stops it from happening. So a lot of people I know are going to watch this video and say, oh, I'm going to now bring in the law of attraction. Well, I've got some news for you. Don't expect it to turn up tomorrow.
Yeah, would it be safe to say the consistency, that belief that you said, that belief has got to be really focused, and that you have to be consistent with that each and every day, that you start to see these changes happen?
Chris, what I shared earlier, 16 inputs, that now gets your subconscious mind going. Mm-hmm. 28 days of affirmations, or whatever you want to call it. I usually say most people don't understand how habits develop. Watch a kid tie a shoelace, and that kid's going to struggle for the first 21 days. Yes. By 28 days, not a problem.
He can do it blindfolded.
Correct. And then you need the 90-day equation. So if you take that into account, the 16, the 28, and the 90, you now have the foundation for the law of attraction. Mm. Most people, once they get to the 90-day level, are attracting at a level that they don't believe possible. But in a lot of cases, most people are attracting at a level that they're not sure of, because things just seem to materialize. Things just seem to happen. I've heard so many stories about people that have never used the law of attraction, got a little bit of goal setting, and next thing, they've bought themselves cars, they've bought themselves furniture, they've done all sorts of things, achieved different things. It's all because of the law of attraction. Gotcha. And the one thing I want to bring in here, which is so important, the reward factor. Every time you achieve something out of the ordinary, go and reward yourself. It can be just a little dinner, it can be a takeaway, and then it grows. Take the family out once a month, once every couple of months. Now, as your sales keep on increasing, you can afford all of this. Most people don't realize what the law of attraction does, because it keeps on increasing and increasing and increasing. And here's the secret. It only increases if you allow it to increase. Because now, if you want to stifle it, you'll stifle it faster than you ever built it and made it work.
Peter, shed some more insight on that. You just said allow. And I think a lot of times people can logically hear that and understand it, but yet they end up doing something that doesn't allow it. Where they allow life to get in the way, they allow things beyond their control to get in the way instead of allowing it and believing it. So if you could shed some insight how people can begin to, again, break that pattern.
Okay, it's simple. Remember, I started this segment by talking about family members, by talking about people that you're working with. They're usually the greatest destroyers of somebody's vision, somebody's focus. And if you start listening to them, everything you build up with the law of attraction, watch it start to break apart, block by block by block. And the more you allow it to break apart, the harder it's going to be to reinstate it all. Yeah. Simplest thing that you have with anything is if you can get momentum going, it's easy. But the minute you put a spanner in the works, not only do you stop the momentum, but you now have another challenge that you need to face in order to look at that particular factor, whether it's building the law of attraction or just building more sales or doing something in your life which is different. Don't ever put a spoke in the wheel, put something in the spoke of a wheel, because the minute you do that, there's a lot of repairing to do.
Well, you just think about like a child. When a child comes into the world, the child, it's like a clean slate. They can feel like they could do anything in the world, right? But then they start observing their parents, they go to school, they start seeing what's going on in the community, in the world, and all these limitations start getting thrown at them. And this is where over time we build this up. We've allowed this, not in a good way, but in a way that now is keeping us down rather than allowing what is possible, things are limitless, but we have to choose to allow ourselves to focus on that and not the things. So just like you said, we got to unlearn those things to relearn and be consistent. I love what you said about that.
Well, there's one thing that everybody needs to take into account, and that is conditioning.
Yeah.
What we don't realize is the minute we get up every morning, we're conditioned.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do of a morning is watch the news, because now you're being conditioned to the negative. I avoid the news until the evening, and then I probably turn it off after 10 minutes because I've now seen the headlines. I hate what's coming, and if I want to know more about the weather, I can go straight on the internet. It gives me better details.
Go to the Weather Channel app or something.
Well, the one thing I don't get with the weather, with all of the techniques and technology we've now got, they get the weather wrong on a daily basis. I understand the old format going back to the 40s and 50s and 60s, or maybe not the 40s, I was born then, but the 50s and 60s, my old man used to say, if you want to know what the weather's doing, open the door and have a look out the window.
There you go.
Well, have a look out the window. You're going to see exactly what's going to happen. And 90% of the time he was right. Now, the next thing I want to bring up, which I think is now bringing things to an understanding and the sequence why I put things in a certain format, and that is substitution. People don't understand the power of substitution, because with substitution, you actually start to feed the mind with an alternative to a negative. If you're sort of coached into negatives, the minute you start bringing in substitution, you bring in positives. And then you start bringing in motivation, and then you bring in inspiration. Hang on a minute. My notes say that what I've just said is wrong. Motivation does not come before inspiration. Chris, you're a guy that brings people in to help motivate your client base. And these motivators are good, but I'll tell you how good they are. 3 or 4 days after that motivator was in, what happens to the team that got motivated? They start to get demotivated, because motivation is not the thing that keeps your focus going. What keeps your focus going is inspiration. See, if I can inspire you, that inspiration will motivate you. It's not motivation, then inspiration. It's the other way around. The inspiration inspires you. That in turn motivates you. When the motivation starts running out, you go back to the inspiration that remotivates you again. And it's a cycle that will never stop. But if you try it the other way, you're going to be floundering all of the time.
Yeah.
Everything that you do that's inspired will not only help you move towards your goal, but it'll catapult you towards your goal. You get there in record time because you're inspired. First thing in the morning, you're inspired. Last thing at night, you're inspired. 20 times during the day, you're inspired. Somebody says, I'm not going to have that. You've just missed out, mate. I'll see somebody that wants it.
Yeah.
And you move on. Yeah. That's the mindset that you need to have. You see, as you start moving towards your goal, if you don't bring in positive thoughts, other thoughts will come into your mind that'll fill that space. So all of a sudden, you've got yourself positive, something has happened. You only need one little thing during the day, throws you off track. Now, instead of talking positively, you start talking negatively. It happens to all of us, no matter how focused you are. From time to time, somebody's going to throw you off track. And remember, if you start filling that space has to be emptied before it can be filled.
Yeah.
If you don't empty the space, what are you going to, you got nowhere to fill it.
Yeah.
You and I were talking about the cloud. You said to me, you got to remove a few things from
I got to remove things. I can't, my cloud was filled.
So the same thing with your mind.
Yeah.
Everything that you think your mind. Now, I would love to see what happens to my mind, because the experts say, and that started with Earl Nightingale, that the biggest genius in this world cannot remember or have a recollection of more than 0.5%. Earl Nightingale says some people can get up to 5%. Well, if that's the best I can do while I live on the face of this earth, mate, let me go to heaven where I got 100% recollection. And my mind is now open to everything I can't put into it on this earth. The reason why we can't remember a lot of things is because we try and fill our minds too quickly with the things that are important to us, instead of writing them down, working through those, then working out how they can be put together like a building block in our mind. Once we start using that approach, I'll guarantee that you can achieve anything.
I agree.
The important thing is now, the law of attraction is going to bring more things into that mind of yours. And once you get the law of attraction working effectively, it's going to put things into your mind 24/7. You won't be able to stop it. The only way that you'll be able to stop it is to put a spanner in the spokes, and then you've got to rebuild it again. To remember one thing, no matter what you do in life, you have the power to choose.
Yes.
And if you're not using the power to choose, well, poor you. You're not going to go very far.
Yeah.
Just a couple more things. I want to bring in something that people talk about, very few people understand, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, I'll tell you something about a self-fulfilling prophecy. Most people spend most of their life wanting. Sorry, you were saying?
Well, I was going to say that word want, it's when I hear that word want, it's like, I feel like I'm losing my power. I'm getting caught up in the control I can't control, instead of saying I will. But I'm going to let you please take it.
No,
I know. Yeah.
I have exactly the same outlook.
Yeah.
The wanting factor is something you can't control. And the more you keep wanting something, the more you're going to lose control. Now, I understand when you're in selling, wanting is the most important thing you can put into somebody's mind. It's they buy what they want, not what they would like. Two different things. I want something, and I'll do everything to get it. And in fact, if you don't sell based on wants, you're going to get your prospect angry. Because you're going to confront the prospect and say, listen, I know what you need. The prospect's going to say, who are you?
Exactly.
How do you know what I need? I know what I want. Even if what they want is wrong, give them what they want, and you've got a customer for life. Give them what they need, they're going to show you the door and they're not going to let you back in.
Exactly.
And yet most people are still training salespeople to sell based on needs.
Yeah.
Something wrong somewhere. The
Yes.
whole industry needs a real shake-up. You need, and this is important, you need to change your vocabulary. Remember we talked about substitutes?
Yes.
Unless you change the vocabulary to substitutes, you're all over the place.
Yeah.
You don't have any depth to what you're thinking, to what you're doing, to what you're planning, to what you're wanting to accomplish. Without that depth, everything becomes shallow.
Yeah.
And when things are shallow, you don't achieve very much. You need to speak with the end result in mind. Most people speak about what they can't have.
Yeah.
You need to speak about what you know you will have, because it becomes a can-do factor, not a might-do factor. I want to bring something else up here, and I want to use the Bible just for a minute because this is so powerful. You know, in the book of Matthew, verses 22-38, it says you need to love the Lord your God with all of your might, all of your power, all of your mind. And that's pretty good because that's an external force that can actually, depending on what you believe, contribute to where you go currently. But let's look at the next verse because most of us get this so badly wrong. And that's 22:39. It says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Now I'm going to throw a couple of spanners in the works again. How many people do you know that can't love themselves?
A lot.
Therefore, if you can't love yourself, how can you love your neighbor?
Exactly.
One of the most, I think one of the most constant things that I hear, it doesn't have to be in business. It can be in an office. It can be at a party. It can be at a family gathering. I hate my body. How many times have you heard people say that? Even if you put on a few pounds, you hate the few pounds that you put on. Look at the words that you're using. I hate. I hate the way I think about others. Well, how can you love your neighbor if you hate the way you think about
Exactly.
neighbor? Right? And I can keep on going. And the same thing happens. Instead of using the substitute for everything, like instead of hating your body, I love my body. I love the way that I think about others. And here's something that you can take away from this video that'll completely change your thought pattern. Most people think in lack.
Yes.
They don't do it consciously a lot of the time, but they end up thinking about lack when things don't go right. What's the thing you think about? Lack. What's going to go wrong if I don't get this right? All that sort of rubbish that you put in your mind. The minute you start talking abundance, everything starts to change because it's easier to think about abundance and then make it your focus. And the minute you focus on abundance, guess what happens to lack?
Dissipates.
It does. And people, if they could only get hold of that one thing. Now, I want to finish with 2 points that are going to blow most people out the water. The first point is subliminal messaging. Now, I can't remember, about 30 years ago, maybe a bit more than that, I was the first guy in Australia to actually put out subliminal audio tapes. And those subliminal audio tapes were on stop smoking and reduced eating. Now, here's something people didn't realize. When I was putting the audio tapes together, I didn't know what the rules were. I had to buy all that information, and I bought it from Yale University, by the way. That's how
right around, not too far from where I am.
Well, mate, you should have a head full of good stuff. You just stand next to the university. Look, again, the law of attraction, you can sit there and stand there and keep on attracting it. The important thing is with subliminal messages, let's talk about smoking. Stop smoking. You know what the subconscious hears? Doesn't hear the word stop.
Here's smoking.
It hears smoking. So you start to deduce what you need to do, and that is to smoke more. That's once you get the nicotine in your system, you'll keep on smoking more and more. The other thing is don't smoke. Guess what the subconscious doesn't hear?
Don't.
Now, what I had on that tape were words like, if you smoke, your throat will burn. So people would listen to the tapes and all of a sudden their throats got hot. So they get rid of the cigarette very quickly. If you smoke, you will repel all of your people around you, the neighbors, the workmates, because you got this odor coming from you. And I had something like about 60 different messages which brought up the negative rather than the positive.
Yeah.
Now, I remember one guy ringing me with a big smile on his face. And what he said, when people ring you, you can actually feel them smile. You know that. It transfers through the phone. And this guy said, I normally on a Saturday night have my daughter bring her friends over into the lounge room. They watch the TV or something, and they smoke and they smoke and they smoke. And I put these videotapes on, and guess what happened? All of a sudden, people couldn't smoke. Some people were saying, my throat's burning. Other people were saying, can't stand the smell. They kept on coming up with all these little things which are on the videotape. That's how powerful the subliminal message is. And again, it comes back to the point that I brought up, which is substitution. Now, there's one more thing I want to finish off with, and this is such a powerful thing, and that is no generating questions. Most people in sales haven't got a clue what I'm talking about, but if I start giving you examples, you'll start understanding where this is. Do you realize that a lot of questions that people ask of somebody else, if you're in sales, the last thing you want to hear is no, 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 because that's going to create an environment where they're going to have to say no to the final question.
Yes.
So you avoid that. So let's look at the way that people don't appreciate how no generating questions work. Walk into a department store. What's the first thing you hear? Can I help you?
And it's either you're going to say no or I'm looking.
You walk another 200 meters into the same department store. Is there anything here that I can help you with? What are you going to say?
Same thing, just looking, or no, not at this time.
You're going to keep, wherever you go, these people are generating questions. Now, I'll tell you how funny this whole thing is. I was in a supermarket once, and this supermarket hands out brochures. They're full-color brochures, sometimes anywhere from about 24 to 48 pages, depending on what specials are up. And I watched this one little girl behind the counter ask no generating questions, and everybody said no. These people then left the counter, went across to the door, and all of these brochures are there, and they'd pick up a brochure and take it home. But when she asked the question, they said no. I'm about 5 or 6 people down, and I said, look, shouldn't ask questions, do you want, would you like, because they're going to generate a no. She said, what should I say? I said, this is next week's brochure. Just give it to them. You know how many people said no when that was used?
Very, very few. None.
I went to the car, came back, put my groceries away, and stood by the counter watching this particular girl. And the only time that she got a no was I only picked up a brochure 2 days ago. All right? It wasn't a no. It was something that was said. So the minute you start to use would you like, could you, do you want, can I help, all this sort of stuff, the minute you use phrases such as that, you are creating no generating questions. Now, that's bad enough in sales. It's bad enough in business, but in all of life,
any circumstance with the communication to another human,
you don't want that.
Yeah.
Now, Chris, I would like to now ask you to summarize, because you haven't said as much as I'd like you to.
Well, yes. Well, you made some great points at the end about again, the substitution, the no generating questions. Again, it's just, again, kind of like just, you got to, you put that out there. You got to be, you got to be, now you're aware of this, but it's putting this into use, because, just like you said, Peter, we could always go back to our old ways, defaulting back. So we have to be constantly aware and know that we have to use inspiration, to motivate us and go back to the inspiration. So this way we don't end up repeating these same things that really kept us stuck in the first place. Why we weren't able to get to the next level in sales. Why we haven't been able to take our relationship to the next level. Why we haven't been able to take our business to from 5 million to 10 or 15 million, whatever the case may be. It's taking these steps that you shared and not only like logically understand, but you have to be implementing them each and every day. They're going to become embedded at the subconscious level.
Yeah.
And that's where that inspiration becomes motivation. You could call it discipline, whatever you like to call it. Discipline can be inspiration in itself. Doing these things that are going to be different, that are going to lead to those results you're seeking. I love the two things that you summed at the end, because I think those are things that a lot of salespeople really, from what I see in the United States, that I don't think they've ever heard that, on them for the most part. And that's now the fact that you've been doing this, I think that's a game changer in so many different ways, and how that can impact somebody's bottom line with what you shared.
Chris, let me just explain to you why I'm now doing what I'm doing and why I didn't do it sooner. I'm in my mid-70s, and I'm at the point in life where I've had a couple of my friends turn around and say, look, if you don't start sharing what you know with other people, when the switch finally turns off in your life, everything else will turn off. Yeah. You might have a lot of books out there, but the books do not bring your passion out. Yes. Videos do. And yes. That's where the difference comes in. And I'm now happy to start providing videos, and I'm providing videos on products that I'm now producing. Every part of that's important. But the most important thing is I want to see the wholesaling industry go to another level. And I've met a lot of guys in the States, and I've worked in the States quite a lot. And the funny thing is, everything that I've done in the States, I've been number one. And they could never work out why. And a lot used to say, I worked out why you're number one in this company, and this is a multinational, because you're from Australia and they love the accent. Yeah, fair enough. I'll let it go at that. If that's what you want to think, that's what you want to think.
Well, no, I don't think. I think, again, you shared so many things that when you break it down, it really isn't complex. We make it complex, like you said. We throw that thing in the spoke every time. We do it to ourselves, not even realizing it. We try to make it harder than it has to be. It's just, again, believing, knowing that we, if we have to unlearn certain things that we've been conditioned into, and confirm these things that you talked about, and just knowing that if you believe in this process that you shared and keep doing it, when you start to see the results, just keeping that gate open and just keep doing what you're doing and believing and keeping that energy, flowing. And that's, what I'm a firm believer in. What you put out comes back, but if you throw in a bottleneck in there, or choose to put a bottleneck, then it's going to throw you off. So I loved everything that you shared. And I think this is critical for any person in business or any person in life, especially for salespeople that are really, we're in a world now that we really have to, stand up and be able to really get to what's really important, and how people, want to buy something that they desire to buy. They don't want to be sold. They desire to buy something they want, like you said. And these steps are just critical to make that happen. I'm so proud to be on this video with you, knowing that people can listen to this over and over again, because they're going to hear something perhaps they didn't hear the first time, maybe the second time, and it's going to resonate. And I'm going to make sure personally that, this gets into the hands of a lot of people.
Chris, that's the only way you can ever watch a video. Watch it once, you're a fool. Watch it twice, you're nearly as bad a fool. But when you watch it 10 times, you're going to come out smart.
Yes.
Because every time you watch it, you're going to see something or hear something you didn't see or hear before.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for the interview, Chris. I really...
Peter, thank you so much for your wisdom. You've got this group on Facebook that has just changed the lives of so many people. All the books that you've put out there, the audio tapes. I mean, you've been, you are someone that has lived, sleep, and breathed this profession for over 60 years. And here you are at an age right now where most people will be like, hey, I might be on the golf course, I may be doing these things. You are committed to your craft, that you want to leave a legacy. And I admire people like that want to pass their wisdom and inspire, younger sales professionals and other people in business to keep carrying the torch to that next level. And I, again, appreciate you for sharing today.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless.
Now, I've just finished editing and reviewing the whole edit for the full 60 minutes, and I'm impressed with the content. But I'm also impressed with the way that I've been interviewed, and I want to say thank you for that, Chris Salem. Now, I am a veteran of interviews. I go back about 55 years for the first time I was interviewed, and I remember that being with a local newspaper. Then I progressed into better quality newspapers. I've had, I don't know how many hundreds of interviews on the radio, and that went to television, and then eventually we had FM radio come on, more interviews, a lot of capital cities, and while I was out there, even in seminars, I'd be interviewed after that in a specific region because it was of interest to that region. And beyond the seminars, I've had interviews on stage. I've had interviews when I've done keynote talks, and more recently I'm now starting to become interviewed more often on social media. Each interview is different in each of the categories and in the generations that it serves. But the one thing I want to say, I've had, I don't know how many people that have interviewed me, probably now past the 1,000, maybe into the thousands over the past 55 years. And there are certain people that interview, and their interviews actually stand out. And I want to say thank you to you especially, Chris. I couldn't stop often, over and over and over, saying thank you, because that would have not looked right. I think that would have sounded ungenuine. But in your case, what you've done, you didn't only interview, but you also added information, contributed a lot of information that other people either wouldn't or didn't know how to contribute. And because of all the work that you've done, and because of the way that you've handled this interview, I think this interview is special, and people will want to watch it over and over. And I just want to say again, Chris Salem, thank you. I appreciate everything you've done. And you know what I've done also? I've opened a 17-year-old bottle of Cab Sav. I'm not a heavy drinker, but when I do drink, I like to drink quality wine. And Chris, I salute you, and I drink for your future successes and for our time together in future, so that the audience we have can still enjoy what we do at a higher level. Thanks again, mate. That was superb, just like the interview.